And I have got a really exciting show for you today. And, you know, I put the message out there. So some of you are saying, when? And, you know, did I miss it? And it's like, no, please give me a minute. I've got to record it and then edit it. And here we are. So this is the recording phase. And you're listening to this about an hour after we recorded it. So it's not quite live. Anyway, I'd like to preface this introduction by saying giving you a little disclaimer, and that is that neither my guest nor I are medical professionals. What we're going to be talking about today is nutritional supplements and the whole world around that. And we intend it as information. Oh, and I think I'm supposed to say entertainment. So, okay. So with that said, stay tuned because I've got a very exciting guest on Beyond the Matrix.
Come fly with me, far beyond the density, gazing down upon the matrix where you are free to see the cage, a place to which you refuse to be bound, because your mind, your soul, was always meant to soar with the eagles. Welcome to Beyond the Matrix.
Okay, everybody, here he is. His name is the CEO and founder of a company, a relatively new company, I think, but I'll let him tell us. The company is Touchstone Essentials, and I'm drawn to it because they're all about detoxing, especially heavy metals, which is where I'm rolling right now. And in fact, I'm using their products. So I really am very honored. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Eddie Stone. Welcome to Beyond the Matrix.
Thank you, Patricia. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you and your audience and just talk about these things. I think they're relevant, not just in this moment we live in, but if you want to have a good life and a life filled with vitality, you know, your health is right there in terms of critical importance.
And it's so important now. I mean, with what's going on in the world, there's never been a more important time to make sure you're getting your supplements. I just want to preface by saying, I don't really like supplements. I believe that the food and the air and the exercise and moreover, the mind is what you need to keep your body right. But as you are surely going to discuss today, that's great, except we live in an extraordinarily toxic world. So a little help doesn't hurt. So, okay. So please give us a little bit of your background so we know who you are and how you started this company.
I'm happy to. So I'm 57 years old. I'm about to be 58 this coming Friday. And really for my working life, more than the past 30 years, I've been involved in the supplement industry. And it's interesting that you say that about supplements because I'm really critical of about 99%, maybe higher, of what's in the marketplace, because I believe there's a really high level of sort of establishment of false expectations for people, you know, that it's one of those things where you can lose 10 pounds overnight, or this is going to change every dynamic of your health that you've been sabotaging for 30 years, or sort of whatever it happens to be. But I do see an important role for supplements, particularly in the modern world we live in, because for most people, life is very demanding. You know, it's kind of a go-go society. But really to sort of keep up and make wages and have a family or do whatever, it's just that way, right? It's just the world that we live in. And maybe if we were able to go back and reset things a little bit, we might not choose that. But just given that, food tends to be one of these things that becomes least important. In fact, if you look at statistics, most people are buying the meal they're eating based upon convenience. That's actually first. And then the second reason is cost. And then third is flavor, and somewhere around number 6 or 7 is nutritional value, right? So we don't necessarily think of it as nutritional fuel. We think of it as this sort of satisfying moment, and that's fine, right? I'm not here to tell people they're living their life the wrong way or the right way, but I do know that if we don't pay attention to the issues, then we do suffer. Our risk of disease is higher, sort of the quality of life as we get older becomes less. And then, you know, it's not unfair to say that there's a lot of people in the modern world, particularly, that are almost prisoners of their physical body because it's breaking down on them. probably largely based upon lifestyle and habits, but also the environment that we live in. And so for me, and I hate your audience is going to say, well, this guy's a mixed message on supplements. On the one hand, I believe supplements are really important, right? Because they can allow you to supplement and bridge the gap between where you are with your habits and how you eat and where you wish to be based upon lifestyle. But on the other side, I'm not a fan of most supplements. So I'll hopefully during the course of this, we can kind of clean me up a little bit so I don't sound like such a contradiction.
Same page, which is delightful because I'm always telling people I'm so anti-pharma, it's ridiculous. So I will not take an aspirin. I mean, I have to be in grave condition to even look at a pharmaceutical. And
Sure.
So my message to people is if you become addicted to supplements, you're just redoing the pharmaceutical thing, only now they're supposedly better for you because they're supposedly enhancing the body. But you know what? If you've got an addiction to supplements, I mean, I know people that are saying, well, I'm taking wheat juice and 8 million things. It's like, do you ever tell your body that it's perfect, that it knows exactly what to do, that it was designed by divine creator to manage life, to stay alive, to stay healthy? But I will agree, and I'm so glad that you're on the same page, that there needs to be a supplement that is really, really something that you can look at and say, okay, I'm just going to show it because I'm taking it. Super Greens ND. I'm taking this. This is your product. And I can already feel the difference. So
it's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
It is. I only have one bottle, so I'll be ordering it again. But yeah, I've only been taking it for a couple of weeks, and I could definitely feel a shift in my energy because I work really hard. I work 14 hours a day sometimes, and I can feel it. So can you tell us a little bit about this and how you foresaw what needed to be this product?
Sure. And it's funny that you highlight that one because that's a really popular product for us. And I think in part because it's almost like substituting your grocery basket, right? When you look at most people's grocery baskets, the amount of deep leafy green vegetables, which are pretty critical in how they support the body, not just nutritionally, but you know what's there that may support the body systems from a central nervous system function, your endocannabinoid system, how you manage toxins, right? The body's got all these wonderful systems, but they can get ignored, right? And so you talked about self-care, loving yourself, and sort of recognizing these dynamics. And so to me, just like we try to learn to augment our habits in meditation or exercise or breathing, that's how I see the supplements, right? That's how I color it there. And so where this started for me was there's sort of two big events. One is in the late 1980s, my mom, Judy, who's alive and well today, was sick. And she was sick and she was run down and tired and sort of catching every cough and cold and flu. And so we didn't think a lot of it. But over the course of a 2-year period of time, everything was getting worse, including unexplained weight loss and listlessness. And so we were taking her to all the medical professionals we knew in our local community. I live in North Carolina in the United States. And then we branched out. We were going to medical universities, and no one could really help us understand what was going wrong. In fact, some people said, well, maybe it's in her head. But you know, it's physically manifesting itself in such a way that as a family, just knowing her mental health being good, right? We're like, we just don't think that's possible. And along the way, someone gave us the phone number of a physician, and they described the physician as a quack. They said, now listen, I'll give you this guy's name and number, but he's really just a quack. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, but we were desperate enough. We were like, okay, that's fine. We'll call and, you know, sort of answer those questions ourselves. And it turns out that it was a physician that thought about toxicity during the diagnosis process. And he used pretty aggressive forms of IV chelation therapy, probably what I know today, probably pretty dangerous amounts of it without going back and supplementing some of the minerals. But in my mom's case, she really responded to multiple hours a day, 5-6 days a week for several weeks. All of a sudden, she started to feel better. And what it allowed us to do was sort of uncloud the picture and she was having an autoimmune response to breast implants she had put in earlier in her life, and including one that was leaking. And so this wasn't it wasn't necessarily this conventional path. And however we got there, we're also thankful that we did, because we don't know what would have happened had it gone unchecked for years longer. But ultimately getting the implants removed, getting her body cleaned up, she returned to good health. And really for me, even though I'd been introduced to nutrition, I had done a modest amount of triathlons and type things when I was at the university. It was really the first time I had thought about not just what you're putting in your body, but what you're trying to get out of your body that comes from the environment. Toxins just aren't a very often discussed issue unless it's an acute issue, right? Somebody in an industrial environment has exposure. And so, we try to clean them up. And so that was really a wake-up call. It even allowed me to think about my own health and what I was doing in my late 20s. I was already off track. I was eating way too much fast food, working more than I should, had forgotten all my values of exercise and all these things I had when I was at the university. And so this started me down this path. But ultimately, as I learned about nutrition, the one thing that's sort of undeniable is that most supplements, when we talk about sort of conventionally what's in people's kitchen cabinets, and I don't really care how much they pay. I don't care if it's a $10 multivitamin or a $200 multivitamin. The majority of them are really made the same. They're produced with a series of isolates that no longer really resemble food. That's sort of how vitamins were created in the late 1800s, which really started out with B vitamins as a supplement when they started to eliminate wheat germ from flour so it would last longer. And I won't bore everybody with all these history stories, but the bottom line is we began to get rid of the whole compound and just try to supplement with specific ingredients. And of course, when you look at food, it's very complex. Even something like an apple has several hundred different compounds in it, most of which we don't fully know, but clearly they serve a purpose, right? I mean, food has a value in part because of the synergy created by what it's made up, right? And even though man can send somebody to the moon, we haven't been able to make an artificial apple that's the same. Even these Beyond Meats and things like that, which may have some value in terms of the ecology of our world, whether it's really food or not, sort of this whole different dynamic to discuss. Food is more than just a series of chemicals. And so I'll give everybody listening sort of just a prime time example of this. If you go to your kitchen and you look at your supplements, most of them will have vitamin C in them. That's what it will say on the label. But in parentheses, it's probably also going to say ascorbic acid. And that's because, particularly in the Western world, you can label ascorbic acid as vitamin C, but the reality is ascorbic acid is just one compound. It's one piece of an 8-compound entity that is vitamin C. And so when you're having ascorbic acid, you're not having the complete compound. In fact, think of it this way. Ascorbic acid is really the outer shell, not much different than, say, the egg shell to the egg. It's not the egg. It's the shell. And so what happens in your body is your body's got to go in and using enzymes, and the body's super sophisticated, right? Break down those other 7 compounds from your collagen, other aspects of the body to make that complete vitamin C. And so, no wonder people will be taking 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C to try to get value, because it's just a really super inefficient process. I mean, I could argue it may be more taxing on the body than it is good. Now, if you've got scurvy, okay, you can probably avoid that rare and uncommon disease. But in general, what people are thinking about when they're thinking about supplements, that's really not what's going on. And so what we tried to do is take a different tack and sort of recognize what can we do to try to maintain the integrity of food as much as possible. And so using whole foods, create our supplement line. And the entire supplement line is made of whole foods. And so it's that product you just held up is, broccoli, and the sulforaphane that comes from broccoli is found in those broccoli sprouts. And sulforaphane, we know, has anti-tumor properties. The vitamin D in that product is made from an organically grown, carefully harvested mushroom that's not harvested with heat. Most people don't know this, but if you take a mushroom at the end of harvest time and you flip it over and expose its gills to sunlight, it will make vitamin D. And so not only do you get the vitamin D that's represented in that whole mushroom, you get all of those other important compounds, including beta glucans for immune system, that are in that mushroom, right? And so it's thinking about the complete compound and the whole food. When you look at some of our other products and you see acerola cherries are there because they're a terrific source of vitamin C, particularly if you're harvesting carefully, organically grown acerola cherries. They're going to be as much as 25% vitamin C. Now, they're not going to taste great because they're super sour, but that's not what we're getting them for, right? We're getting them because they're a terrific, efficient source of whole compound vitamin C. And so that philosophy of thinking about the whole permeates the entire line and philosophy of our company. We're very much trying to think about not just that, but even with our business practices, our impact on the community around us. And so there's a lot of things we do. We're plastic neutral. That means that while we do have some plastic in our line, we invest in the neutrality of that and cleaning up plastic as it's seeping into the ocean. And so we would love, even if people never buy a thing from us, which is perfectly fine, at least look at some of the material and just think about the impact of supplements in those buying decisions, even the organic part. People don't often think about it. So most people think about organic, they think, oh, it's going to maybe taste better, which I would agree. Maybe it's more nutritious, but it's also when you're redirecting your dollars away from that conventionally grown product, that organic, that means there's literally millions of pounds of herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides that never make it into the environment. So there's a holistic thing here, and I don't mean to be so long-winded with it, but there's a whole holistic approach here that we've tried to bring forward with the company.
So, yeah, you've done it very beautifully because I really examined you. I love your ethics. I love your spirituality. I love your morality and the whole thing. This is why, and I'm going to announce it already, I have decided to endorse this company. So, and the first time I've ever done that, I mean, you guys have heard me say, go out and get your Berkey filter, but I've never been directly involved, whereas I am going to be directly involved with Touchstone Essentials. So it's because of all those aspects that you bring to the table and your ecological concerns. I mean, it's all there, which I really love. So this product is an immunity booster, which in case nobody recognizes, one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up is because there's never been a time like now to boost your immune system. And we're going to leave out the part of that conversation that'll get us in trouble, but we all know what we're talking about. So I don't know about anything with acerola cherries. How did I miss this?
Well, it's just really a whole approach. And let me say this about Super Greens Plus D, which is the one that you're holding up there.
Yeah.
So it isn't just the fact that vitamin D, which I think most of your audience, you have a very educated audience. We looked at some of your statistics, and so they're all going to know about the role of vitamin D in good health and the performance of your immune system. But what a lot of people don't also then consider is how the gut simultaneously plays a very central role in how it functions. Your gut really is a pharmacy for your body, and it's one that is respondent to deficits particularly, right? And so that product also has in it a combination of basically enzymes as well as pro and prebiotics. And the probiotic side of it is a combination of spore former and non-spore former. So those multiple probiotics have been examined in a lab environment to make sure that they work together, they're compatible. That's not always true. Since they're not coming in, say, a sugar base like you find with yogurts, they aren't probiotics that live on sugar. And so their ability to survive and thrive in the gut is much greater. And for those that don't really know a lot about the role of spore former and non-spore former, non-spore formers are very, very delicate. And so the reason you may see some label that says it's got, 30 billion units or whatever it happens to be, it's because most of that will not survive both the acidity and the heat of your gut. And so they really are only able to count on a small percentage of those probiotics getting to your gut and then trying to populate your good flora. But when you use spore formers, they are incredibly durable. And so think of them as kind of leading this charge through the gut into your bowel and basically clearing a path for those delicate non-spore formers to be able to come in there, thrive, and survive. And so it's not uncommon for us to have people talk to us about all the side effects they've had from, say, leaky gut or other kind of gut-related health issues, finding relief in very short form using it. And it's just because you're just trying to take a holistic approach and just recognize the moving parts and pieces of both gut health, immune system, and how they work together, because as your audience will well know, the body's complex. And so sometimes you've got to take a complex approach to address these issues.
But you confused me. I want to clarify something. Did you say that the leaky gut was a response to this, for taking this product?
So we have a lot of people that will come back to us, right? Remember, we're not prescribing anything here, but this is not a drug, right? And so we're not trying to say it cure, mitigates, or treats disease. But what we found is a lot of people with leaky gut issues and complaints find relief using that product or our super green juice, which is just another, it's a powdered juice version of that product, right? And so for us, that kind of motivates and drives us when we wake up every day and we read these reviews and people tell us their personal stories. That's sort of where that energy to make it through the day and drive through the tough parts comes from.
I hear you. I have the same going on in my life. All right. So where do I get the acerola cherries? I mean, you've sold me on this.
So you'll find the acerola cherries in a product we have called Essentials, which is really a very broad array of 28 different herbs, mushrooms, enzymes that if I have anything in the product line that represents that big vacuum of the modern diet, right? And I don't know if you know some of the numbers because they're not pretty, but about 95% of the calories consumed in the developed part of the world are coming from ultra processed foods. Yeah. So there's just a lot of things that are missing. And while we can't try to create one product that takes care of everything, the Essentials has that very broad array, including things like aloe vera and others that just sort of missing from that everyday diet. So it's kind of that multi-sourced product for people to use.
So I'm going to bring up a competitor. Back in the day, I got involved momentarily with Juice Plus. And so I'm sure you're familiar with Juice Plus. Because when I found Super Greens, I went, this is reminiscent of Juice Plus, which is your fruit capsule in the day and your vegetable capsule. And the turnoff was, of course, this hyper selling, and you had to bring 8 million people. And the other thing was, when I asked at a conference, were they non-GMO, the very rich speaker said, well, we do our best. Yes, we have. I said, come on, you've got this global product. It's like selling millions and millions. I want to know where these organic fields are. And he couldn't come up with the right answer. And so I read on your site that everything is non-GMO. Can you attest to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use a certification service called QAI, and quality assurance is the leader in this kind of environment. We recognize that as a company, in order to know every nitty gritty part of that field, that supplier's paperwork, how things are handled, all these things are components, seed histories and things like that. We need an outside service. And so we use QAI. You'll see those identifications on our labels and on our website.
There it is. Certified organic, vegan, non-GMO, made in the US. Oh, and amber protected. Also, it's got a nice long life shelf. It's got a nice long expiry date.
We think it's important. Number one, if you're using the right organic certification services, that means by the very nature of that, it's non-GMO. Good. And so those things are important. And, I used to know years ago a little bit about Juice Plus. I don't know much about their practices anymore, but I don't think they've changed away from the plastic bottles to amber glass. I don't know that their products are certified organic. We think those things are critical to make sure people are getting what they want. We work hard to make sure that when fruits and vegetables are picked, they have to be dried to make it into a supplement form. Unfortunately, most companies are taking shortcuts, and pasteurization is coming into play when they do that, right? Because it takes longer to dry something without high heat. We work hard to make sure our stuff really doesn't see a temperature above, say, 116 to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. The variance there may be a degree or two, but I mean, we're pretty careful with that because at that point, it won't denature. You know, it will remain in its intact form, not dissimilar to what you get with raw food. It's not the same as raw food, and I'm certainly not trying to suggest that, but it maintains a lot of those qualities, including the native enzymes that help it to break down synergistically inside your gut and not tax your own digestive enzyme system, which is another thing with the amount of cooked food that people eat. And I realize eating raw food is not easy, and not all food should be eaten raw. Grains, if you're going to be a grain eater, really, if you want to unlock the value of a grain, it takes heat to do that, but not with delicate phytonutrients found in fruits and vegetables. And so we work hard to dry them at the coolest temperature that we can, because the pasteurization does denature and change things, and you won't find isolates substituted into the recipe. So we'll have people that show us labels of products that do have some whole foods in them, but they're supplemented with isolates. And so that's just really not the nature. You know, we kind of feel like that's being partially pregnant. I don't think you can be partially pregnant. I think you either are or you aren't. And so
what is an isolate?
Isolate is when an isolate would be, say, ascorbic acid, where you're taking a compound and you're trying to break it down. And in most cases, they're getting those from either corn or petroleum byproducts, because you can take petroleum, you can manipulate its chemical composition. And for example, you can make it mimic any B vitamin. Any B vitamin can be synthetically mimicked, but none of us, you know, no matter what it might say on the label, none of us would confuse that with a live food or a live compound. And the essence of the life force that comes from fruits and vegetables, I do not believe can be lab created. I'm just sorry, I'm not of that ilk. I just don't think that's really what's intended there. I think there's a lot more going on just beyond trying to mimic a compound with a petroleum base. So here's the other thing. I said there were a couple of events in my life that put me in this direction. My mom was clearly one, and its impact on my own approach to health. But the other was just really seeing how supplements are made. And for most people, if they took the supplements that are in their cabinet, no matter what they paid, and they went out and saw how the compounds are created, and the fact that ascorbic acid, for example, I don't know of any facilities in Europe or North America that make ascorbic acid. I think all of those are in places in Southeast Asia where there's not a lot of monitoring of the environmental impact of production or any other feature. Not trying to be critical of the people in Southeast Asia that are just trying to survive. That's not the nature of it here, but the way labeling laws work in the US, I can buy tons of ingredients outside of this country, but assemble them here, call it made in America. In our case, almost 100%, not quite 100%, but almost 100% of everything comes from the US. We do get a few things from Canada and a few things from organic farming in Brazil. So we do have a few things because we want to buy in a native region. And that's what makes the most sense when you're trying to buy some certain items. So there's just a lot of dynamics there. And when I really saw what supplements were, I almost felt like I was in my own episode of Wizard of Oz, because here I was selling these traditional supplements, but what I was selling really wasn't matching up to what my thinking was and where I wanted to go. And so I would be happy if people didn't think of us anything more than just an educational body. You know, we do sell some things, but if they are just grow in terms of their awareness about food sourcing, if anybody's never read Michael Pollan's book called Omnivore's Dilemma, to really just understand how the food you're eating, where it came from seed to finish. As human beings, we tend to ignore the value of food, but if you're thinking about your health, that's the most important.
Well, what's really exciting about your products is that they're food products. These capsules, let me just read the ingredients for a quick minute here. We've got organic barley grass concentrate, organic parsley, organic spinach, organic broccoli, organic Jerusalem artichoke inulin, probiotic. I mean, it's wonderful. Enzyme, cellulase, lactase, it's all there. So
All vegetarian based, vegan based enzymes. Everything's coming from a plant. No.
I'm a 37-year vegetarian, and a lot of my followers are vegans and vegetarians, so that's good to know. Okay, so I have a question for you, a little off the track, but there's a lot being said right now about the food supply being blocked in America and Australia and other places because of this pandemic, whatever we're going to call it. And so does that affect you in any way as far as getting product out?
Well, you know, we have seen disruptions, but we've primarily seen disruptions on material supplies. And so we've had to become smarter and buy much further in advance, say, amber glass bottles or the lids and some of those dynamics. Even some of the, you know, our corrugate is principally recycled corrugate. And the ink that we're using for the most part is a soy-based ink. So we're having to spend a lot more time sort of thinking about those issues. When people get the packaging, the internal packaging to keep the glass from breaking is compostable. So you can actually use it inside your garden, and it's an excellent source for helping to hold moisture, just like if you were tilling plants back into the ground, which if you're doing rotation farming is what people do. So there's a lot of dynamics in that regard that we had to pay attention to. But in terms of our farming partners and co-ops that we work with, in a few instances, we've had to be a little more conscious of sourcing and think a little further out front. But we're seeing those supply chains being robust. They're even having to deal with increased demand and working well. Where I see on my end, and we see a lot about agriculture and how things are happening, where a lot of disruptions are taking place are very labor intensive, animal protein product type of processing. That seems to be more of that issue. And maybe there is a larger hand or invisible force at work slowing it down. But if you just consider just the trappings of a pandemic, how that could disrupt labor, a lot of what we see just has more to do with labor than it does anything else. But our world is small in that regard, right? So we just know what we know, but what we know, we pay attention to very carefully, right? Because we supply and support a lot of people. I mean, there's some 60 countries that we ship to on a regular basis. And so we're working hard to make sure we're able to fulfill their needs and wants.
Because I'm hearing and seeing videos of farmers who are saying they're being told to destroy their crops by the government.
Yeah, I can't attest to the validity of that. It may be all just as transparently valid as it looks, but I just don't know enough about it to speak with any sort of expertise.
So as long as your organic crops are safe, right?
They are well. They are well. And we're thankful because, it's interesting, the myths about organic. We're members of the Organic Trade Association because we want to support organic farming. And it isn't just the fruits and the vegetables, right? As I had said earlier, when you just think about when you're buying organic, that means that same product wasn't grown conventionally, and all of those petrochemical based herbicides, fungicides, pesticides now aren't pumped into those communities. Those farm workers aren't touching them. They're not getting into the soil. They don't have to be remediated from the soil. They're not getting to the water supply. It goes well beyond the scope of your meal of organic greens. There's a lot more dynamics here. It also makes people be more conscious of soil. So if you look at organic farms, their protection of topsoil, how they manage water, crop rotations. I mean, it's just better for our world, period. And the price difference at a conventional grocery store averages under 3%. But that isn't what the messaging is, right? The messaging is that organics, this enormous increase into the consumer's budget. And the truth is, it's not. If they just look a little different, look on different shelves, they can find organic at very affordable prices. I think it all tastes better. Consumer has to make their own decisions. So we're wanting to get rid of some of these myths about what organic means in terms of taxing and expense for consumers.
And you have you have I get your newsletters. The information is constant and very, very clear. Okay, I want to take a leap now to the reason we got in contact in the first place, which is detoxing heavy metals. So I was chagrined. How did I miss it? To find out that rice is full of arsenic. I mean, I'm Italian. We make risotto. Ma che scherzi? And I used to represent the Thailand Tourism Authority, so I'd seen Thai cooks wash the rice over and over and over again, but I thought it had to do with fluffy. And now I realize they were probably trying to wash out the arsenic. So, my first message to people is, and apparently brown rice has more arsenic in it than white rice. So if you think you're doing this big healthy number for yourself, it's really important to find out about this, and you bring this information forward. I'd like to talk about it and then introduce this wonderful product. It's called Pure Body Extra Advanced Daily Cellular Detox, and it's about detoxing heavy metals. Let me just show it. But what I find fascinating, and I'd like you to talk about, is why you've chosen to make this an, would you call it an aerosol?
Yeah, just a spray, right?
Why is it that you've created a spray? Because I spray this in my mouth 3 times a day versus taking the powder, zeolite powder, or any of the other heavy metal cleanses that people are turning to. I would love to know how this works much better from the horse's mouth, if you'll pardon the vernacular.
Sure. And I'll get into those details, but the spray process is just, it's really quite simple. First, at a nano size, the product is too small a particle to be managed as a powder. So you just would not be able to manage it. Think of it just sort of wafting around and becoming a cloud of dust, right? There's just no real means for us on a practical basis to give you a powdered version of that you can manage. Even in a capsule form, even the loss of material in manufacturing and capsule assembly, even in a vegan capsule, right? It's just too difficult because it's that small, right? When we talk nano, we're really, really, really talking small. Secondly, if you're going to clean a zeolite and prep it, you can't do it as a powder. Undoing the liquidization of it so that you can work with it's just nearly impossible. So here's the things about zeolites, and it's pretty simple. If you're going to use a zeolite product, one, sourcing. You want to make sure it's clinoptilolite and that it's mined in a reputable place. Our product is mined in a pristine location in the US, out of the ground. It's Prop 65 compliant. So it's a clean product to work with. I'm not a fan of synthetics under any circumstance, but I do understand people that sell the synthetic products. It's cheaper, right? It's lab made, right? They can control some of the dynamics, but that doesn't make it better, nor does it make the compound as sturdy inside your body. So I won't wear people out on that one. Beyond sourcing, you want to think about size. So we mill our product to a nano size because it's a hardened mineral. It doesn't dissolve in your body. Now it's so small you won't detect it, but it doesn't dissolve in your body. And so the way that it's going to get into the cells or function in the body is based upon its physical size. And the way your body is built, basically anything under say 0.5 microns is too small to remain in the gut. And so it will generally migrate out through the esophagus or the upper part of the gut into the soft tissue and the bloodstream. So number one, the product principally works on the cell, not the gut, sort of a separate discussion. But if you look at heavy metals, environmental pollutants, cadmium, lead, mercury, arsenic, hexavalent chromium, right? All these positively charged particles, generally man-made, although arsenic isn't man-made. We certainly know concentrations of arsenic exist that have been man-made. And if you think about just the fact we live in this modern chemicalized world, I mean, I tell people all the time, one of the dirty little secrets of the modern world is toxicity. There's 100,000+ toxins, man-made toxins, never really been studied for impact, both short-term and long-term, that are used in consumer products we handle, touch, deal with, our food sits in, whatever you want to describe about it, it is our life. It is the modern life that we live. Even now, if you look at fabrics, the trend towards synthetic fabrics, and I'm not trying to dismiss all that as having some value to mankind, but it also creates a price, right? It creates a price. And so when you just sort of look at these dynamics and then think about things on scale, someone reads, well, there's 2 billion smartphones. They don't really think about what 2 billion smartphones means in terms of the use of precious metals, the chemicals used to extract those precious metals, or to create that beautiful screen that makes your phone look so fantastic, or all those vivid colors. And again, I have a smartphone. I'm happy to have my smartphone, but I'm conscious of it. So, for us, when we look at what happens in terms of hormonal disruption, but particularly the disruption of the function of the mitochondria at the cellular level and the production of ATP, which is that vital source of energy that makes it all work, makes your enzyme production work, makes your heart work, makes the muscle tissues in your heart and lungs work. Everything has, without that mitochondria function and that ATP production, the body just is not going to reasonably work. And so we believe in order to, sort of get the most performance out of the body, you need to think about getting the bad stuff out as you're putting the good stuff in. If you just put the good stuff in, that's okay, but also a body burden develops over time. And a lot of people in the modern world sort of look around and say, gosh, I've got all these skin issues, or I'm having trouble with brain fog, which I recognize is not a medical term, but almost everybody listening here knows what I'm saying when I say brain fog. Or I don't sleep as well, or my joints and things are stiff. And people say, oh, you've got arthritis, but why? Why? There's all these irritants in our lives, even if they're at a microscopic level, at an angstrom size level, which is what most heavy metals will be, including arsenic, that get trapped in your cell, and it's just disrupted to the function. So when you spray that, it principally absorbs mucously. And so now you're talking about something that gets into your cells very rapidly. You have these aquaprina channels that allow fluids to transfer in and out of cells. And again, I'm describing something that's very complex in simple terms, but think of channels that go in and out of the cells. And so the zeolite.
What? You're talking about the interstitial fluid?
Yeah, right. It has to have a travel point, right? And that's called an aquaprina. And so those things can be toxic, right? And you've got to provide a vehicle to that. And so essentially the zeolite is basically a mineral with a cage-like structure that's negatively charged. And so when it comes in contact or vicinity to a positively charged heavy metal, cadmium, lead, mercury, all these other things we're describing, it's like the north end and the south end of a magnet where they bind, they click together. It's the same kind of dynamic. And because just like if I have a magnet and I put a piece of paper above it, it still has its power above the piece of paper, right? It can still bind to something. The zeolite will also then, the technical term would be the zeta effect, will also then attract things to its outer surface. So it has a multiple way of functioning. And because it's a non-essential mineral, it doesn't remain in your body. About a 4 to 6 hour period of time, it's going to go out primarily through your urine and your bowel, but it's not essential, so it's to stay there. So it's actually this perfect vehicle. And I like it because it's specific and whole in terms of cells. Things like bentonite clay, charcoal, some of these other things people use, I'm not dismissing they may have some value, but they don't have this kind of complete and targeted value. Getting back to another reason it's in the spray, and this one's pretty simple. Human beings will not continue to use something that they find to be, and if you can indulge me, a pain in the ass. And so things that create mouth fatigue with flavor, or they create fatigue with usage protocols they don't stick with. And since your exposure doesn't go away, right? We don't all of a sudden stop being exposed to heavy metals because we detox. We wanted a product that could comfortably and easily be used day in and day out. So you've got a systemic tool, a tool you can use all the time to support your body's natural ability to detox. And so that's where the convenience of the spray, odorless and tasteless, all came into play.
It's definitely odorless and tasteless because, I have a gag reflex that's scary. And, I mean, if I have to take anything that's just remotely unpleasant, I start with this.
Yeah.
So this is absolutely, I have it in the bathroom with my toothbrush and I have no problem taking it. I liked what you said about the magnetism factor because in the current health issue moment, there's a lot of talk about how the blood cells are being magnetized into these forms of concern. And so, anything you can do to detox metal in general, but the idea of reversing a positive charge in your cells is major important, and it's major important right now. Would you agree with that?
Yes, about alkalizing the body. And you don't want to be too acidic. The body thrives and craves balance, right? Just like with lifestyle and exercise and everything else. And so we believe that the pendulum is so swayed on the toxic side, that you've got to be doing something, and you can do a lot, right? You can do a lot by just the amount of green leafy vegetables, cruciferous vegetables that you eat that supports the body's native abilities to detox. But we just don't believe it's enough. It's just the modern world's polluted, and you need tools, and your body needs tools to support. So
I think probably isn't. You've really got to hunt out the real deal. And number two, how many people really clean their vegetables? I mean, I know that you can use baking soda and soak but how often do I really do that? I'm lazy, like you said. It has to be easy. And so it's getting harder and harder to have the array. This was one of the things I liked about the Juice Plus concept was you're never going to eat 75 vegetables and 25 fruits a day. But
no,
it fell short. But you don't fall short, which is very exciting.
But it's funny when you say that. People, it isn't just that if they wrote down a list of things they like. Most people will write down between 5 and 9 fruits and vegetables that they enjoy.
Yeah.
Which isn't a big number. You need more variety than that, but okay, let's just say that's the number. But when you do food surveys, when people keep journals, they eat 3 to 4 fruits and vegetables regularly. And so they're just not presenting the compounds and varieties that really are necessary for optimal health. And so, look, I'm guilty of it too. So our green juice has 44 ingredients. It's in part because just looking at surveys and information like that, we just need the broadness of it, right? It's a recipe designed to have a broad stroke approach to it. So I hear you. Modern living, one of the modern living taxes on life is no time and exhaustion, which means we won't invest time in food that we should.
And, you said most people have more like 3 a day, but you know what? Most people have like none a day. I mean, it is amazing how little green vegetables people really eat.
Well, I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt and allowing them to count the white potato. It really shouldn't count.
It doesn't.
Years ago here in the States, the federal school lunch program allowed ketchup to count as a vegetable. So it's a very loose interpretation in the modern world of what really a vegetable is. And so I agree with you. If we really examine this thing closely, it's not very many.
There's a protocol. Again, we're not here trying to sell your products, but because of course I'm going to be ordering more. So what would you suggest is a great daily protocol to have that range?
I get asked this a lot, and full disclosure, I use it all and I use a lot of it. So I mean, I'm a fan of our own work. But if I were someone that said, you know what, I've got 2 budgets in life. One is I've got a fiscal budget, right? I can't afford to maybe spend all the money in the world, but 2, I only have so much time. So what can I do? And so for me, I think the Pure Body Extra Zeolite, the nano product that you held up, I think that's just in the world we live in the bombardment of our immune systems, pollutants, when you consider the pandemic, however we want to think about that, there's clearly some event going on, right? And the necessity of trying to maintain a good immune function and system, which isn't just the food you're eating, it's a combination of lifestyle and attitude. You really can affect how your immune system functions with your mood, which can be affected by the quality of health of your gut. So if I look at how these systems tie together, the fundamentals for me are, one is that Pure Body Extra. I want to take some bad stuff out. I fly on airplanes a lot. I was on an airplane last week. I'm on an airplane this week, and I'm on an airplane the next week. Have too many miles in the air. And that place is where you get all those volatile organics coming from flame retardants, things like that. So I think it's critical to be detoxing. Number 2, I can support that, but also get micronutrients from our super green juice. And I love the flavor. So I take a scoop before each meal. I'm a 2 meal a day person. And I take a scoop of that before each meal. And then I will supplement that with the Super Greens plus D. And we have a product called Wellspring that's got parent essential oils in it. It's a good source, particularly for vegans. It's a good vegetarian source of omega-3 fatty acids. And then I use our CBD product because I have a fairly high-strung life. And so stress chemicals that your body just makes naturally, even if you don't have a gross appearance of stress, are there. And so trying to bring balance to my sympathetic nervous system, I'm a daily user of CBD.
I have a jar of that from you too. Okay, so I'm taking this now, and I asked your representative, how long do I take this? And he said, just keep taking it. So are you suggesting that we just use this nonstop? In other words, most detox systems are like a process that you go through for a finite amount of time. I'm getting the impression that this is just a supplement that you want people to use nonstop.
Well, unless you have a means of isolating yourself from the modern world, modern air, just think of all the places, for example, around the world right now where there are wildfires.
Yep.
Canada, US, Europe, Africa. We're just not going to be able to get away from the fact that our air is polluted, even if we use less coal-fired plants. And there are still plenty of coal-fired electrical production facilities around the world today. It just doesn't go away. So if you detox today, at your breathing again tomorrow, right? I don't know how you get away from it. I don't know. So for me, it is a daily exercise because I can't live in a bubble. You may not remember this, but in the 1970s, there was an after-school TV movie starring John Travolta about the boy in the bubble. And this little boy had, a compromised immune system, so he had to live his life in the bubble, right? And he was, as a teenager, right, frustrated that he couldn't interact with his friends. The reality is that we can't live in the bubble, right? So you're out there. And so for me, it's like armor. It's just one more means to support how my body manages the modern world, which I embrace and love. And in the same way that I don't have full confidence in my diet, particularly when I'm on the go, I use the greens on a daily basis, right? I need food on a daily basis. I need nutrients on a daily basis. And just like the CBD oil, that balance to my endocannabinoid system. So I just view these things as habits to cultivate, like I cultivate good breathing habits, exercise, proper sleep, drinking water. They're just all part of a package, I think, if I want to maximize my health and, make it past my 58th birthday.
Oh, for God's sakes, you're going to be around a long time. Look at you. You're a spring chicken.
I hope so, right? But those things to me aren't accidents.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? They're things that you plan for.
Yeah, well, I'm 69 and I'm going strong too. I feel
You
healthy.
look great. You look great.
I'm glad to incorporate these products into my life. So now the good news for everybody is, because I'm endorsing this product, you have made a superb, generous offer for my listeners for a 1 week period. You want to tell them what that is?
Yeah, I'm happy to. We enjoy the chance to do this, and we find some synergy with someone like yourself, right? We'd love to make an introduction to their audience. And so that product you're holding up is $79.95. We sell it all day long, all across the world. For first-time folks, people that have never tried anything from us, we will make it available to them for $5.
That's amazing. Because when you first told me that you would do that, I thought, oh, you're going to take $5 off? And it's like, no, we're going to charge $5.
We're going to charge $5. And there are some dynamics to it, right? So you'll post a link to the page. And when they go to the page, they're going to see the regular price is $79.95, which someone can purchase it, right? There are plenty of people that are just skeptical of everything in life, and so they won't do it. And so they can just get the regular price, $79.95. Everything we sell, $5, $79.95, all unconditionally guaranteed. It's got a 30-day money-back guarantee, no problem. And people can look online. We've got 15,000+ 5-star reviews, AAA rating with Better Business Bureau. So all those things are good. We work hard for your business. If you take the $5 offer, it will also then opt you in to the subscription, which is the next best price of $63.83. If, though, after you make the purchase for $5, you change your mind, that's okay. 1 hour later, 10 days later, 29th day before your subscription ships, either email, chat with us online, or call, cancel your subscription, no questions asked. And so we want people to be satisfied and happy. And the good news for us is they most of the time are, and they become good partners in health.
That's wonderful. And, you know, by the way, guys, I mean, were anybody through me to have a bad deal, you could always come to me and have me check it out, but you're not going to get a bad deal here. So what a generous offer for that. And like I said, I'm taking it, and I guess I'm taking it for life now, because the girl who says, be careful about supplements, I'm thrilled, especially at this time on planet Earth, to have such a comfortable solution to this. You know, I mean, I bought Zeolite, and there were these big old capsules, and you know, people were saying, oh, you got to be careful how much what you're eating, and you got to have extra water. And it was put off. By the way, you do recommend lots of water with this, right?
We just recommend lots of water
every time,
anyway, every day, right? And so if you're a regular water drinker, then this should be no problem, right? It's just part of your habits. But if you're not, if you're a person that just lives off of whatever it is other than water, then we want you to add some water to your diet so your body just has a better, easier time of detoxing.
And I also, in the highest ethics, want to let everyone know that if you do go on to purchase products, there will be a small commission for me. So I don't want anybody to start questioning it. I think it's a generous offer, and I'm really glad to support them. And I'm very grateful for the support on the other end. All right, you have the link here in the screen, but you've also got it in the editorial information on the page here. So, you know, do yourself a really good thing and take advantage of this. I just can't even believe you're doing this for $5, and that will only be for 1 week. So I really recommend you jump on this and get this. And like I said, I'm using this and I'm using this. One more question, and I'll let you go. I know you're a busy man.
Sure.
But do you have any new products online for the future?
We do. We actually have a very full pipeline. And one of the things we're doing is we're moving to pouches for our powders that are made, majority made from non-GMO corn and sweet potatoes, which have a very a terrific biodegradable quality, right? So we got some good things coming up. I won't give you the exact products because that just would be unfair to all the people that ask me every day, but they'll see a new product offering from us coming out at the first of the year that we think is just every bit as important as what we're doing with Pure Body Extra. And then another this March that's been incubating for almost 3 years. And so it's taken a while to get all the I's dotted, T's crossed, supply lines secured. And so we're excited. So we've got several new things coming. It's going to be an exciting next 24 months for us at Touchstone.
I'm so glad we found each other. Thank you so much. And hey, everybody, check it out. That's it. I'm detoxing.
Right. Patricia.
Oh my God, I got a little bit on my face too. I guess I'll have to do another spray. Thank you, Eddie. You're wonderful, and your energy is just fabulous. And I'm really, really pleased to introduce you to my audience. And guys, you know, don't hesitate. Don't miss out on the offer. And you're going to want to, well, once you get through this link, you're going to want to explore everything there. And by the way, Eddie, I need to order a whole bunch more stuff.
We've got plenty of supply. We'll be right there for you. Patricia, thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
It's wonderful. Maybe you'll come back on again. We'll talk about some more specific information because you're really a delightful human.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. You've been listening to Beyond the Matrix, the program, you know, asks you to look outside the box and live and breathe outside the box of convention. And we've done that today with Mr. Eddie Stone. Thanks for listening. This is Patricia Corey signing out. Till the next time.